Right, well, hello everybody. Welcome to the Discovery Controller session. I'm Ranveer, obviously. We're here with 3 commissioners for the price of 1 today. Marjorie Kaplan, unfortunately, couldn't make it for personal reasons right at the last minute, but in her place we have an all-star cast of 3 very high-level people at the Discovery Channel. So, Helen Hawkin is VP of Production and Development for Discovery Networks International. Ed Sayer is VP of Production and Development for Discovery Networks International as well, of whom it was said had unbridled energy, unrivaled enthusiasm. Which is, if you feel the need to do press-ups during the questions or do a lap, you know, to get rid of some of that unbridled energy.
But I was at the George last night, so I like...
yeah, so maybe not so much energy this morning. And Claire Laycock, who is VP Head of Channels TLC and Investigation Discovery Networks, which I think is still the #1 real crime channel in the US.
UK channels,
right, okay, interesting. So thank you all for being here. Now, so most of us, I'm sure, are familiar with some of the big shows that the channel has to offer. Gold Rush, Wheeler Dealers, Idris Elba No Limits is another big one. And we know that these are really big budget premium shows I'm sure most of us would like to be involved with and to make them. But it is fair to say, I think, from what people say, that pitching to Discovery can sometimes be a confusing process. There are so many different channels under the umbrella, and it can be a bit perplexing to know where to go to get the right response. So we're hoping that by the end of today's session that everyone's a bit clearer about how the network runs itself and who is the best person to go to with your big ideas. And we want to know sort of what the DNA is, essentially, of each of those channels, so we really get a sense of where you're going and some of the big things you've got in the pipeline. And we're going to take some questions as well. We've got the video wall as well as the app, and I'll be picking a few as we go through. So I think the first place to start is probably just to find out a bit about each of you, if that's all right. So, Helen, if you just want to kick off. I think you've been at Discovery for donkeys, haven't you?
4 years.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I guess that's donkey's ages in telly terms, isn't it? It's like dog years. So, so I've been there for 4 years. But my job's changed a little bit in the last sort of 18 months. But right now what I do is I commission factual content mainly for Discovery, but basically for factual content, because we have a range of different channels. You know, generally in most of our markets we'll have 9 or 10 different channels. So 30 years ago it was just Discovery, based in the US. Now we're in 220 markets around the world, and so people can pitch me ideas. The main filter for me is I'm looking for ideas that can be international in focus, so ideas that can go out around the world, and then I'll work with the regional programmers to work out which is the best channel for those ideas to go out.
So science, natural history, those sorts of things are really
science,
part
natural history, adventure and survival, some crime, some life on the edge, dangerous jobs, but we're also looking to expand on the fringes of some of those core genres.
Okay, we'll talk about that later too. So, Ed, you've been there about a year, we're saying?
Almost.
Almost a year.
Yeah, I'm the newbie.
How's it going?
Great, thank you very much.
What is your main job then? What have you...
So I've got a slightly different remit that I commissioned for D&I, but also for our UK channels, which is Discovery UK and Quest.
And what sort of commissions have you in the last year since you've been there? How have you made your impact?
Well, the 2 big commissions that we've been talking about this week is obviously Idris Elba, and then we've got Sean Conway, where he does an ultra triathlon around the outside of the UK.
Right, and so you're into sort of popular science, automotive, that sort of thing?
Absolutely everything. Bigger the better for me, though.
The bigger the better?
Yeah.
Okay. Claire?
Hi everyone. My role is a bit different from these guys, so I'm part of the UK business. I head up TLC and Investigation Discovery in the UK, and as a channel head I'm responsible for setting the strategy for those channels and covering across content, commissioning, acquisitions, marketing, research, everything that goes into getting a channel on air and hopefully delivering the biggest ratings.
Right, lovely. Were you at Discovery earlier on in your career?
I was at Discovery a long time ago.
And you went to UK TV,
Went to BBC, then UK TV, and then I came back just nearly 2 years ago.
Okay, lovely. So shall we have a look at one of the clips just to sort of get us going? Helen, do you want to introduce this clip?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's got 3 short clips on it. It just gives an idea of the range. I mean, speaking to what I was saying before, Discovery Networks International isn't just about the Discovery Channel. It's about programming that can go out on a variety of channels, whether it's TLC, whether it's Quest, whether it's ID, Discovery, Animal Planet. And so it's very short, but it just gives a little sense of some of the range.
Lovely. So Claire, do you want to pick up on perhaps one of the more controversial ones out of there, or is the undressed one? Although having said that, I got in from watching my friend at the Fringe yesterday and switched on the telly. I'll just watch something and that naked attraction thing was on, and it made me feel a bit sick. Anyway, but sorry, so at least they've got some of their clothes on in this one.
Yeah, Undressed is a much more elegant dating show. So it's a format that actually our Italian sister channel in Italy picked up last year, the Zodiac format. They're now on season 3 of it, actually. And we looked at it. The Italian version has very beautiful couples coming in with amazing underwear, obviously. And we were like, this looks amazing. We love the idea of it. It's essentially a dating show. Couples who've never met before but have been matched on paper come into the room where there's just a double bed and a big screen, and the first thing they are asked to do is undress each other. They then get into bed and they have to answer certain questions, do certain tasks, spend half an hour together basically, and at the end of the half hour decide whether or not they want to see each other again. And it's actually a really sweet dating show. It's just a kind of fast track to intimacy, cuts out all the kind of the accoutrements, all the sort of things that we go through when we're in that dating game, and kind of cuts to the chase, and it's really sweet. So we picked it up, Fizz made it for us. It's series 1 is airing now on Friday nights, doing a brilliant job, particularly for young women, which is our key target demo. And I'm really pleased to say we've just commissioned a second series, actually. So
it's on TLC? It's
on TLC in the UK. There is obviously the Italian version. Our Dutch channel in the Netherlands are making one too. So it's one of those formats that we think is a great TLC format around the world.
Presumably the temptation is to keep going further, to sort of, as we've seen, to sort of keep breaking new ground.
Well, I mean, I think for me, I'm just all about what our audience want and making sure we get the biggest audience possible. So I think there's no point doing it for the sake of it. There's a reason that Undressed exists. There's a reason why they get down to their underwear. It's kind of to strip away all your inhibitions, or it's not judging people on how big their willy is or anything, which may be naked attraction.
Oh, you watched last night's episode? Oh, right. Okay.
I haven't seen much of yeah. I've seen
actually
a couple of them.
Yeah. Right, lovely. So, do you want to talk about some of those other clips? Oh, there was Yes to the Dress as well, which is one of your favourites, isn't it? Sorry, Claire.
Yes, it's not on there, but I just want to mention Yes to the Dress because it's a real brand-defining show for TLC. It's obviously a format that's been around in the US for 10 years. It's 10 years old next year. It's a wedding format, a bridal format. It's one of those amazing shows that looks incredibly simple, but is kind of massively addictive to watch. We've had the US version, Canadian version on our air in the UK for the last 3 years, and we've just started airing a UK version with the lovely David Emanuel, and it's doing gangbusters for us, so I'm so thrilled about it. I don't have a clip to show you, but hopefully you've all seen Yes to the Dress, and if not, Friday night, Friday Bride Day on TLC, do watch it.
Okay, right. Ed, do you want to pick up on the other 2 shows we saw there, which was The Last Alaskans and Marooned with Ed Stafford?
Well, actually, no.
Oh, okay. Not interested.
Helen can do that.
All right.
Because Ed is Helen's project, so it'd probably be better.
Yeah, so, I mean, Ed Stafford, I think, is, a great example of how we love working with, great and authentic talent. Ed walked the length of the Amazon about 5 years ago, and this was before my time at Discovery, but there was a documentary made about that. And literally in the first week that I was at Discovery, he came in to talk to us about what he might do next. And we've done a variety of different series with him. And he's a fantastic talent. He's really authentic. The first series we did with him, which was Naked and Marooned, was the real Robinson Crusoe, if you like. And he was adamant that he wanted to film everything himself just to prove that he wasn't being fed Mars bars when the cameras were turned off because there was no crew. And so, I mean, that clip is from the forthcoming series of Marooned, which starts airing in mid-September. You know, we love working with Ed.
Have there been any close shaves that you know of?
I mean, yes, he's had some tough times. There was one occasion where, in a variety of the seasons where he's come very close to bears. He nearly got charged by a hippo in the Okavango Delta, and had to sort of run up a tree and try to sleep up there overnight. So yeah, he puts himself in challenging situations, but he's an amazingly accomplished.
And who is with him out there then when he's filming?
So when he's filming, he is filming by himself, but clearly we have a production team at a safe distance who can come in at a moment's notice should anything go wrong, but he is by himself. So, but of course, Ed's big adventure, it actually is that he's getting married in about a week's time. So we're wishing him very, very well for that.
Lovely. Ed, is there any of the programmes you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about Last Alaskans?
Well, Last Alaskans was one of Marjorie's commissions when she was at Animal Planet. And it's one I know that she particularly loves because of the depth of the character and the really strong storylines.
And what is it, and how's it doing?
Well, good, yeah.
Okay. Was it a late night last night? Where's this unbridled energy gone?
But I think what something like Last Alaskans illustrates is, you know, something that we've been discussing very closely with Marjorie since she joined us, which is her enthusiasm and our shared enthusiasm for kind of creator-driven content. Ideas that, you know, how in popular drama you'll have shows, whether it's Breaking Bad or Orange is the New Black or something like that, which absolutely couldn't be made by anyone else. You know, Breaking Bad is Vince Gilligan's dream, and I think that, you know, what something like Last Alaskans does is it shows you a world you think you might know, the world of Alaska, in a different way with amazing characters. And I think in the new series that I commissioned, Everest Rescue, which unfortunately we don't have a clip of, that is very true, is that yes, it's in an amazing international location, Everest, it's following the lives of the heroic rescue pilots who, if all goes wrong and, you know, local people in remote villages or climbers up above base camp, first camp, second camp, if they get into trouble, these pilots are their only chance. But it's also about more than dangerous jobs. So it's about great emotional storytelling as well, and you know, characters with great depth.
And so let's talk a bit about then sort of independent producers. Clearly you have companies that you know do certain things really well, and so it's natural, I suppose, to go back to those people and when they come to you to be more open-minded. But you know, we have a lot of people here who may want to pitch and don't know where the best audience is in discovery. So can you just, each of you, give us a bit of the DNA, if you like, of the channels that you are most interested in?
Yeah, definitely. So we're not really commissioning on ID, investigation discovery in the UK yet, so I don't want to talk about that necessarily.
Just buying into that.
We get a lot from the US, so that's a great programme supply from there. I hope that situation will change at some point, but for the moment not.
Okay.
But TLC in the UK is a female-skewed entertainment channel. We target young women. Our average age of our audience is 41, but we're particularly interested in that 16 to 34 age group. It's a fearless entertainment. We'll do everything from, as you saw, dating shows, anything to do with great characters, great stories, reality, formats, factual entertainment, single docs. I'm particularly looking for series for 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock. Things that can become returning series. We've made quite a name for ourselves at TLC so far with big noisy one-off docs with the likes of Katie Hopkins, Jodie Marsh. I really want to, those are still going to have a place, I think, but for me it's really about finding those returnable franchises. So yeah, that's...
And strong female protagonists is the key.
They don't have to be female protagonists, you know, I think it's just protagonists that women would like to watch. If we're using talent, they need to be big name talent. We're not going to break new talent. So big mainstream established talent, if talent are on it, but they don't have to be. And definitely formats. I mean, I think Undressed is the first true format that we've done, and I'd love to hear more, not necessarily dating, but more formats.
And Ed?
Okay, I promise to respond now.
Okay, go for it. The floor is yours.
Okay, so Discovery UK, and the good thing about coming to me in particular is you've got a wealth of opportunity, I would say. So you can, Discovery UK, run by the lovely Graham Lafferty, its tagline is Make Your World Bigger, and it's full of shows which are really positive, life-affirming, and have got great adventure in them. Sean Conway's a really good example where he's doing an ultra triathlon around the UK. And Graham was really clever. What we did with that, Tuesday's Child, we had a great online piece, and so you could follow him during production, and he was rigged up with GPS and heart rate monitors and cadence monitors, so you could really kind of dig down into his challenge and what he was going through, and he was on Twitter, and the viewers could, well, not the viewers, the members of the public, because there was nothing to see at the point, were tweeting him and engaging with him. So it's a really exciting, great UK event. And then, of course, the equally lovely Simon Downing is channel manager for Quest, and in fact Eurosport, and Quest is our free-to-air channel and has some really big franchises on there. It's, I would say, slightly broader than Discovery UK, probably skews slightly older at the moment. It has shows like Combat Dealers, which, you know, a new series will be coming out. And
just explain that. What's Combat Dealers?
Combat Dealers is what's the best way of describing it? It's a kind of military antique transactional show.
Okay.
Full of tanks, bangs, guns, medals, helmets. And it's fantastic.
Okay. And what's your particular favourite at the moment that's on? You know, do you have a particular?
Well, I love all the content that we produce for all the channels. I mean, my particular favourite at the moment is my Idris Elba show for DNI.
How did that come about?
So, Victoria Noble was the one that commissioned who's one of my commissioners, commissioned the first series where Idris was driving lots of cars and having a fantastic time. And so he's a great name for us at the channel. And so we wanted to know what he wanted to do next. And so we had a good discussion with Green Door, Idris's production company in Shine North. And it came out that Idris wanted to be a professional kickboxer. So we were like, okay, and worked through that. So it's an amazing series, yeah.
I think we've got a clip later on, actually, that we'll be showing about it. Helen, if there are independent producers who haven't worked with any of the channels before, what advice have you got for them?
Well, I mean, I think we're very approachable, and yes, I mean, I take on board your point. You know, Discovery is a big, huge global company, and sometimes it can feel a bit daunting, but we're extremely friendly. We all sit close to one another, so, you know, people can bring us their ideas, you know, and that can work in a variety of ways, whether it's just, you know, short paragraphs or whether it's catching up over a cup of coffee, and we've got an online portal for submission of ideas too. And then, you know, if there's a great idea but it's not quite right for me, or I think it's, you know, might work for, say, for TLC. In fact, there's an idea that we've got in development at the moment that, you know, someone pitched to me and I said, I love this idea, it's great, but it's not quite right for me. And I shared it with Charlotte Reed on our team, and she's now discussing it actively with Claire.
Do you give money for development? Do you
give absolutely. So we, you know, sometimes people bring us ideas just on paper or bring us sizzles, but, you know, if there's a great idea, we'll often fund a small funded development to allow people to, you know, interrogate the idea, bring us a sizzle, do character tapes, and
I think the key thing really is that we do all sit in the same office, both the UK business and DNI, so we talk all the time. it does seem confusing from the outside, and it kind of is a bit confusing, but whoever you speak to with your idea, it will find the right person, I think.
Absolutely, and we work with all different sizes of production companies. I don't want people to feel that they can't approach us because they might be a new startup, or there are many different ways. So, for instance, Body Bazaar, which is one of our franchises, it started way before I joined. Barcroft makes that with Zigzag, for instance, so that was a great collaboration. It continues to do really well for us.
Okay, there's a question on the video wall actually which links into what you've just been saying, so it might be worth running that now. Let's just take a look.
You have, I think, a very challenging job because you've got to come up with hits that aren't just hits in the UK or Europe, they're also hits in South America and Southeast Asia. You've got to think, needless to say, in this truly global way. What can you tell us as developers and program makers about what those elements are that are truly universal?
Good question there from Dan Chambers.
So, one of the filters that I use when I'm looking at D&I in particular is I really want to have a universal truth at the heart of it. And I guess the best example I can give on that, which I think most people would be really aware of, is Touching the Void. And people say to me, oh, what an amazing mountaineering film. It's not a mountaineering film. It's about one key moment. Would you cut the rope to save your best friend, to save your own life, with your best friend hanging off the end of it? And that is a key question that I think is relevant. Doesn't matter whether you're in Latin America, Asia, Poland. And I think those are the kind of things that I really look for, universal truth. I'm not so bothered about whether, I think people get confused and go, oh, it's a tick box exercise. I must film in Poland, I must film in Taiwan, I must film in Australia. That's an international show, isn't it? And it's not what it's about. It's about a universal truth which is going to appeal to a very broad market.
And not everything has to do that, does it? So there are things that are international shows, and then there are things that are local shows, regional shows. So don't feel that everything you do has to appeal globally. I mean, actually, even though the things that I do are for the UK only, they pretty much do all then travel, but they are designed purely for the local UK audience.
And Helen, do you find that in a sense that when people are coming to you with ideas, you are looking, I mean, obviously it's a business, so you've got to find the story that will travel and that you can put on all your channels. I know you've got one coming up later next year that will do that.
That's certainly, a big ambition, you know, and I think that's probably the big thing that differentiates us from some of the other channels who are represented here, who are only looking at the UK market. We have regional and offices in nearly 100 countries, I think. So, the local expertise is really, really important, and having shows that really serve the local audience. But it's also our ambition to find great shows that will travel around the world and, as Ed said, have universal relevance and allow people to kind of explore different aspects of the world, to be endlessly curious. Our viewers are endlessly curious about the world around them.
Okay, so how do you like to work with producers then? So say someone comes to you with an idea, like you've said, either on paper or they have a little tape or something. How does that then, via one or two of you, go through the development process? How hands-on are you?
You guys are probably best.
Well, incredibly hands-on. I think that development is very much, the way I view it, and I know Helen does as well, it's a completely collaborative process. And so a producer will come to us with a germ of an idea, and if we like it, we'll put it into a paid development and then work with the producers to get it up to a stage where we can then present it higher up the food chain to Marjorie to see whether we then would like to greenlight it.
And everything goes past her?
Of course.
Local commissions don't.
But yeah.
Which, sorry?
I'm just talking about D&I.
Yes, okay. And Claire, what about for you then?
Well, for me, I work very closely with the D&I production development team. So Mark Proctor, who's there in the audience, is the person that looks after the TLC and the female skewing programming. So I work very closely with Mark and his team on that. But those are local productions that come from my budget. So it's something that doesn't go through the same filters that these guys have. But it's a similar process in with similar production companies, the same development, the same amazing production management department that support producers throughout.
And I mean, Helen, if something comes with, it has a good idea, you think it can go somewhere, but the development process isn't quite hitting the mark, can you bring something back on track, or sometimes do you just have to let it go? And let that idea go somewhere else, for example, where it might, you know?
I think that's a very good question. I think because we work really closely with producers, you know, that's part of what the development process is about, isn't it? So you're looking at, does the idea have legs? Does the production company need additional support? So we might, at a certain stage, sort of encourage them, say, well, you know, you might want to bring in a showrunner or an exec producer who's got more experience in this particular area, even though you've got amazing access. You know, sometimes with very, very new startups, we'll encourage them to get some sort of umbrella support from a company that's got more experience and expertise.
And
in
you'll
a particular
do that,
area.
really. You can, like Ed was mentioning, you can pair
what we
companies up.
tend not to do is to say you must work with this producer, because we don't know if it's the best fit. But what we have done in the past certainly is like I did a series which went out on Quest UK recently but was more international, called Big Fish Man. And what we did there was we put the amazing talent, Jakob Wagner, and we introduced him to 3 or 4 production companies. And we said, look, we're not going to be prescriptive about which one you work with. We think they're all very, very good and very talented. It's up to you to choose, and then they will give you the backroom support, you know, the production management, the logistics, all of those things, so that we will be confident that the show can be delivered to the standard that can go out around the world.
And so, I mean, obviously there's a lot of success that happens at all your channels, but have there been shows that have taken either longer to build or which in the end didn't quite hit the mark? And you're sort of having to answer those questions to yourself, as well as say what happened there. Who's brave enough to answer that?
Well, I'll take it on. I mean, it's quite interesting when you work for an international channel that goes out in 220 different countries. Measuring success is not quite as clear-cut as if you were in one single territory. So sometimes you might find that a show hasn't found an audience, say, in the UK, but it does elsewhere. And of course, you know, the different markets, they have slightly different audiences. And so there's no kind of single defining, that didn't really work.
Do you have an example then that comes to mind of any shows that maybe didn't work here, but you know, you put on your channels internationally and actually was a hit there?
Well, I'm not too sure that I've been there long enough here to, you know, 10 months. So no, that I can't really give you anything, but I think that and also that, remember the nature of international channels, of how we schedule our shows and repeat them, that in fact they can find audiences at different times in different regions. And so everything that we commission, we look at very carefully. And so there is no kind of, you know, a kind of single, or that's a fail.
And is there any one audience, you know, is there an audience that's not more important, but it hitting the mark matters more than anywhere else?
When we're looking at the audiences, obviously you can't religiously look at the ratings in every single one of the 200 plus markets. So we do track particularly carefully about 20 markets around the world and learn a great deal from that about, you know, how shows have worked with them and, you know, what that means and how that informs our future commissioning decisions. So yes, I mean, you know, all our viewers, of course, are very important, but, you know, the big, those
that pay especially.
Yeah.
And Claire, on TLC, you did some stuff with Katie Hopkins, and I know that I think the chat show didn't do quite as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that didn't do as well as her previous documentary, My Fat Story, which is still our highest rated show ever we've had on the channel, actually. But no, we were really proud of the sort of panel show. It was a very new thing to try. I think she's very entertaining to watch, whether you love her or hate her. But it was a great thing to try. We decided not to bring it back.
Is that the end of her on TLC?
No, I don't think so. I think if the idea is right, we would work with her again. She's quite current affairsy, and that's not what TLC is about. TLC is an entertainment channel. Everything we do has got to be uplifting, it's light-hearted. So yeah, it just depends on what the idea is.
Okay, shall we take a look at the next clip? And this is being put forward as part of the show I stuck by, although it's not gone on yet, so I'm not quite sure what it means. But anyway, let's take a look at it anyway. It's beautiful to look at. So this is The Rise of the Warrior Apes. I think it's a 2-hour film,
Yes.
isn't it? I mean, this is absolutely premium, isn't it? Out next year.
Yes, that's right. So I suppose, I think what it demonstrates is that, there are some genres that people tend to think of when they think of Discovery, and natural history is one of them. And I think this is a very strong statement that we absolutely stick by great natural history ideas, but we're always looking for ways to refresh those stories. And in fact, it's the same show that you saw a clip of right at the beginning of this session.
Just to explain, this is about the largest troop of chimpanzees, and it's been found in Uganda, and they've been tracking them.
Yes, so it's an amazing archive. So the Matt Cole at Keogh Films and James Reed, who's an amazing filmmaker, award-winning filmmaker, brought us this idea and said, there's this extraordinary troop. They are 3 times as large as any other troop of chimpanzees ever seen in the wild, and scientists started studying them 20 years ago to understand what on earth was going on, and became transfixed. So there's archives spreading back over 20 years, and it's not a documentary where someone stands up and tells you what to think. We, as the viewers, are going on a sort of journey of exploration alongside the scientists, trying to understand, as Matt said in the little clip at the beginning, it's about greed and ambition and love and political alliances. It's like a Game of Thrones in the animal world, if you like. And beautiful storytelling. So I'm incredibly proud of that. And I think natural history, I've also commissioned a 5-part series which we made with Plimsoll Productions down in Bristol called Dogs: The Untold Story, which is another big glossy blue chip series about dogs as pets, dogs in the wild, the extraordinary story of man's relationship with dogs over 34,000 years, and that's been shot in 4K, so it's great commitment to new technology and to something that will really stand the test of time.
How much does something like The Rise of the Warrior Apes cost?
We look at all the shows and give the appropriate budget for them.
Very big, I imagine.
Look, it is not a cheap show. We look at the budget carefully and we give the money that it needs to make it a decent show.
This is the universal storytelling again, isn't it, I suppose? Because once you've commissioned something like that, this is going to go everywhere, presumably.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's out in 2017.
That's right.
And why 2 hours standalone?
We thought about a variety of different shapes for it, and it's a glorious story. It felt like a bit of an event. It felt like something that just felt like the right shape for the story. And I think you've just got to be flexible. Yes, of course we love returnable series, and we're always looking. I'm always looking. Ed's always looking for series that can be returnable. But this just felt like a great treat, really.
And Ed, can I ask you? From all of your experience, not just necessarily at Discovery, but what do you think is the biggest mistake then that production companies make when they're pitching an idea or they're trying to develop projects?
Making sure you've got the right channel at the top of the piece of paper is probably #1 thing.
Sometimes goes wrong, does it?
Well, sometimes I get something with a rival broadcaster's name at the top, which is a bit annoying.
Okay.
I think the biggest mistake you can make, actually, is not to be aware of a channel's output. So it doesn't matter which channel you're pitching to. If you come in and you can't talk eloquently about the output and understand the differences between, say, a Discovery show and another network, then, that's a bit frustrating.
And so explain then. So if you were to say it in a couple of sentences, what's the key driver for a discovery?
Well, there's not a simple answer to that, because if I'm talking about this, DNI, I like to kind of say that we're almost like a special forces unit within Discovery, that we don't have slots to fill. There's no kind of, so we can absolutely cherry pick the very, very best and biggest ideas.
And manipulate the schedule to fit the programme almost.
Absolutely,
Yeah, which is
and they
a very special thing to be able to
support other brilliant content coming down the US pipeline, or other content that the regions are making. And so there is no kind of, I think one of the things for me that defines Discovery is having big aspiration behind all the ideas, and as I said, a universal truth, and incredibly powerful storytelling. And of course, I think Discovery is also really known for being at the cutting edge of production technology, and I think that's something that's really valuable to us as well.
And you've got
really high production value.
And you've got some.
I mean, we've just for the Everest series, you know, we've just filmed some VR on Everest up above base camp, and you know that's a really exciting thing to do. So our VR channel and website is, you know, we're exploring new ways of telling stories using emerging technologies, not just for the sake of them, but to allow us to tell stories in interesting, new and immersive ways, to really take our viewers into new experiences.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the international element. Let's talk about a new programme that's just started on TLC, Claire. Second episode went out last night. Yep. Should we just take a look at it first, actually? Yeah. So, Claire, the taster for this, I know, absolutely hit the spot for you. Just describe sort of what that moment was like when you first saw a bit of it.
Yeah, so actually, I mean, this clip, I think, really does show the breadth of what we're doing, because it's so different from the type of amazing shows that you guys are talking about, amazing in a very different way. Actually, there wasn't a taster for it. Where this show came from actually was this Edinburgh this time last year, I think in this very room. I bumped into Richard Hastings, who had just started at Shiver, and he said, can I come and pitch to you? So he came in, I think, the week after Edinburgh, pitched a few different ideas for TLC, and then kind of at the very end of the meeting said, oh, there's this other one, I'm not sure it's right for you, it's a bit bonkers, and just said the title, Katie Price's Pony Club, and we both kind of just burst out laughing and thought that was a bit weird. And it just kind of stuck in my head for a bit, and I was just like, leave it with me. Is it right? Isn't it right? It's crazy. And then we just thought, let's do it. It's sort of unmissable. I think Katie Price had been pitched to us many times. She's a talent we've been thinking about, looking at. Great for our audience, a great person that people have an opinion about, but we'd only really heard ideas that felt quite samey, lots of sex-related ideas, lots of ideas she'd done before. But this, the Pony Club, you know, she is a really accomplished horsewoman. I think most of us know that about her, but we've never really seen it. So to see that side of it, to see her with her kids now that, you know, Princess and Junior are old enough to chat back to her, they're really sweet kids. So to see her as a mum in that way.
Didn't the daughter break her arm during the filming of this?
Not during the filming. She did actually break her arm riding, but they ride all the time, so not during the filming. Nobody was injured during the filming. Lucky for us, we had enormous health and safety teams all around, as you imagine.
And how's it done? Because, as I said, the 2 episodes have gone out so far.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long is the series.
So it's 6 parts.
Yeah.
So episode 1, it premiered last week, did incredibly well for us. So 250,000 viewers episode 1 is up to, which is really good for TLC. I'm absolutely thrilled with it. And again, very good for young viewers. So it's our highest ever rating for women 16 to 34, which is the audience we're paid on. So yeah,
you're looking more
delighted.
in that region, aren't you? Anything that for
I mean, I think the thing about this show, it's joyful, it's uplifting, it's funny. It's got a major talent at the heart of it. You know, she's got 1 million Twitter followers, so she tweets about the show. That's great. It gets us talked about. So absolutely, reality show. Things with family and warmth at their heart. It is a very warm show. You know, she has she gets herself into trouble. She says the wrong thing, but ultimately she loves her kids. She loves her family, and that really comes across. So yeah, do tune in and watch it. You don't have to be horse mad, but it does make you want to go horse riding.
Right, lovely. Okay, so we know that the idea is obviously the king, and everyone's looking for what the next big thing is. Let's go to the video wall then. Kate Lander has a question.
You want British companies to bring you our best ideas, but when we take them to British broadcasters, we get a much better deal on the rights. Is there any appetite at Discovery to change the situation?
Yeah, this question comes up quite a lot. I'm sure you faced it before, Helen.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing, you know, that we've said earlier on is that because we're a global business, when people bring us their ideas, if they're great ideas, we want to show them around the world. We don't just want to show them in the UK. And so, you know, that's a challenge. We want to be able to show them in the UK, but and in lots of, 200 odd markets. But we try never to turn away a great idea, and we're increasingly flexible in the way we approach that to make that work. And, there are various different models that we use, and, a lot of the shows that we've worked on are shows that, producers, we work with over 70 different producers. They come back and work with us again and again because we found a way of making that work for them.
So it's not set in stone.
I would say come and talk to us. Just come and talk to us. We'll find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
You can negotiate on rights and so on, can you?
We can do what we need to do to get the best ideas.
I think people become rather agitated over rights, and I think, look, if you're a production company, it's about having a balanced portfolio, and sometimes you want to have something with Channel 4 where you're out in one territory and you keep all the international rights and you can sell it. I think there are plenty of good examples of huge production companies which sold for hundreds of millions who didn't own any of the rights. And if you take original productions that made Deadliest Catch, that those all the territories were gone. So you can have a very profitable business without having to own the rights to all your material.
But you can understand where the production companies are coming from, can't you?
Yes, but you get, with Discovery, of course, you get back-end deals as well through sales. So it's kind of, as I say, if I had my own independent production company, it's about the balanced portfolio. I would be equally as excited to working with Discovery or any other international broadcaster as I would with the UK terrestrials.
Okay, let's take another question from the video wall. This is Harry Bell.
You've said in the past that you really value smaller producers who are award winners and you'd like to bring them into the fold. But given the acquisition spree that Discovery are on with independent producers, is that going to change?
I think that's slightly old news, isn't it? I mean, yes, we own Raw and Betty and part owners of the All3Media Group, and that's fantastic, and we like working with them. But I've worked with Harry while I've been at Discovery. We work with other producers, and in fact, I think across the shows that I make and Ed makes, I think the Discovery-owned companies account for less than 30% of the shows we make. So absolutely, we're looking for the best ideas wherever they come from. We're not just focused on the owned companies at all.
And if a small indie does come with a good idea, do you trust them to make it?
Well, any part of whether you're working with a big company or a small company, it's of course we trust them to make it. We wouldn't have commissioned it, and we keep a close eye on the production process. Our commissioners and exec producers work with them, and if they perhaps start running into trouble for no fault of their own, maybe things haven't panned out quite as well, then it's, as they had hoped during production, there's always a discussion to be had.
Okay, let me just pick up some questions from the app. So there's sort of slightly random questions. Okay, I'll come to you, Ed. How is life at Discovery different from National Geographic? What are the key differences in the DNA? Somebody's asking. Haven't got anybody's names here, so sorry about that.
That's probably Hamish. Well, look, we're totally different broadcasters, and so, but how is life different? Well, there are equally lovely people at Discovery as there are at National Geographic. I'm enjoying myself enormously.
But in terms of the programmes you might commission and so on, I mean, you do quite a lot of, as you say, sort of natural history here as well.
Yeah.
Is there a difference?
Of course there's a difference, because I think it's like someone asking what's the difference between Channel 4 and BBC 2. I mean, they're both, factual channels, but in fact they've got very different DNAs, and Discovery's got a very different DNA. I'd say it's probably slightly more entertainment driven than National Geographic, but I'm sure Hamish would have a slightly different view on that. I think that Look, we're reaching different audiences, we're making different kinds of programming, and I think that if you really want to find out what the difference is, you should be watching the channels.
Claire, we mentioned Say Yes to the Dress, obviously a massive success. Somebody's asking here, are you looking for other ideas in that wedding space?
Yeah, I think we'd always be interested in that. I think it's not just because Say Yes to the Dress works so well, there are a lot of other wedding shows that don't work very well at all. So I think just because it's a wedding show doesn't mean it's going to be right for us. But if you think you've got a format, something that feels different and feels that it would really speak to that young female audience, I'd love to hear about it.
And have you seen shows on other broadcasters you think, oh damn, I wish I'd had that?
The one I really wish that we jumped on was Don't Tell the Bride. I sort of kicked myself, when Sky picked that up after BBC Three went online. That would have been one I would have loved to have had.
And have there been others, I'll ask the same question to you two, has there been programmes that you've seen on other channels? Would have loved that.
I think that there are certainly programmes on other channels that inspire you and you think, oh my God, that's such a great show. I mean, in some of the sessions that we've been in earlier, the new series of Hunted coming up looks really fantastic. But obviously that's quite UK focused, so that one wouldn't have quite worked for us. But I think, some of the subject matter that it's looking at, I think, is quite inspiring and interesting. So I think, of course we're always looking at other channels, at our competitors, at other ideas, at a wide range of media. It's not just about linear channels, it's about, what films, what's online that inspires us, that's talking to our audiences.
And somebody else is asking, is there a particular part of the world that you want Discovery to show more of? It's quite an interesting question.
What do you mean by location?
I think it means, is there are there parts of the world that have yet not been sort of exposed and not been brought to Discovery? I think that's what it means, rather than other places you want to be in.
Isn't about,
could be both.
Discovery is not really about travel programmes, so it's not in that sense. But I think we do broadcast, as I said, in 220 markets. And in order to be successful, we need to reflect the lives of those viewers in the programming that we make, and whether that's by specifically targeted local programming that super serves those audiences, or whether it's international programming with local touch points and universal questions and truths. That is definitely true, but do we want to go out and, make a series about the Seychelles? No, not particularly.
I wouldn't mind going to the Seychelles.
You'd like to do the taster on that one, wouldn't you? Yeah, Claire will accept the taster on that one. Okay, lovely. Right, so we're sort of coming almost towards the end of the session, so let's just take a sneaky peek of you mentioned it earlier, obviously one of your favourites, Ed, of the Idris Elba programme that is coming up. Talk to me about this programme.
It's fantastic, actually. It's so Idris is learning to become a professional kickboxer, and it's extraordinary. I mean, he really is going for it, and throughout the training session, so it's 3 1 hours, and he is learning all kinds of disciplines, which is helping him to become a professional kickboxer. And so the sequence you just saw there. One of the big things about becoming a fighter, if you're not a fighter, is learning how to deal with pain. Because one of the worst things you can apparently do in a fight is close your eyes. And it's a natural reflex if you're being hit. And you do that because your body is responding to pain and you're scared of pain. And so he went out to Okinawa to see that kind of Mr. Miyagi type character, who literally then just spent 2 days beating him up until he could learn not to be scared of receiving pain.
Good grief.
And he really has put himself on the line. And one of the other things which I really love about the show is that Idris does a lot of self-shooting for us.
Does he?
Because I really wanted to try and make him relatable to the audience. I didn't want people to look at Idris as, Idris the movie star.
Yeah.
I wanted them to see him as Idris the man, the real person.
And what is he really like?
He's a great guy, and again, he's really collaborative, and I think one of the real challenges for him has been opening up and, when he does some of his video diaries, we see inside his flat, we see his mum, we see his child. Those things for big name stars are often a closed book. They don't want to go there. And so he's placed an enormous amount of trust in us to let us get into his life in such an intimate detail.
Which channels is this on? And
Oh, it's
it'll go
Discovery.
everywhere. It's
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Discovery, and it'll go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, totally.
in every country.
Yeah.
So can you just, we're coming towards the end of the session. We've talked about sort of, you know, that you're very open for business and you want to hear from small or big companies and you're looking for, you know, the sort of international storytelling and all of that. But what are the sort of craziest pitches you've had and you just thought, for goodness sake, what are you thinking about? Or you've thought that was brilliant, that was mad but brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do like mad but brilliant because I think, you know, if people come to us and self-censor too much, you miss out on some of the most exciting, most, I don't know, some of the best and biggest hits of the last 10, 15, 20 years in television. They might look really safe now, but at the time they were risky and daring and slightly crazy, like your Pony Club idea, you know. So I think people, share crazy ideas.
I think I like when people bring me ideas that scare me, where the first reaction is like, oh my God, we could never do that. And then you think, oh, actually, because, you know, TLC is on page 4 of the EPG. To make viewers come down and sample the channel, it has to be unmissable. It has to be standout. It has to work so hard. So, I mean, it's a much tougher job, I think, than to programme for channels on page 1, basically. So, yeah.
And have you had memorable pitches, any of you? I mean, are there ones that stand out for good or bad reasons?
I can't think of any, no one's done anything kind of singing, dancing girls, nothing like that. I think it's just the crazy ideas or the left of centre ideas, left field.
Although if they do, you know, if I go into their offices and they do provide cakes, that's obviously good.
Thought-provoking and ambitious ideas are the ones that get me going.
Okay, so your final message then to people in this room and when they go back to their offices and talk about Discovery would be what would be the one thing, a different thing each of you would like them to take away from today?
I think people have to think, is this an idea that viewers won't just quite like, they will absolutely love or have a really strong opinion about? And I think, you know, as Claire said, you know, it's a crowded marketplace. We need ideas that are really distinctive and that showcase a creator-led vision. For
me, it's think big because you can always scale down. If you think small, it's very hard to scale up.
And particular genres that you're looking at?
Well, in anything, yeah. For me, I want, as I said, the big, bold, ambitious ideas like Idris Elba being kickboxer.
Okay.
Yeah, and for me, just think about the breadth. It's not just traditional factual, it's the whole gamut of content and formats.
Okay, lovely. Well, and I think that's about it for our session. Thank you to all three of you for coming and stepping in for Marjorie. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.